Hey everybody, it is that time. It is Tuesday night Ask the Therapist Live, where you have the opportunity to be the absolute rock star and ask questions. Ask any question that you might have about love, life, relationships, perhaps parenting, whatever it is that you are struggling with this week, or perhaps a win that you have had. This is your opportunity to ask. This is your opportunity to just share inspiration, motivation, whatever it is. I am so beyond blessed to have you here and share in this hour of Ask the Therapist Live. So how are you doing? Good evening, Shannon. It is great to see you here tonight. Thank you so much for being here. I just saw Shannon this morning at an amazing opportunity that Shannon invited me to speak for MOPS. Those of you who don't know, MOPS is Mother of Preschoolers. This is an amazing, amazing organization in churches that really services women of children of preschoolers. You know, it was funny as I was sharing earlier in my talk. Hey, Nathaniel, it's great to see you. I shared earlier in my talk, whenever Shannon asked me, I really pictured a church basement with 12 women sitting on tiny chairs, and I just sitting there and sharing a question and answer session. But when I arrived, or then I spoke with Shannon a day or so ago, this is important to always know your audience. But when I arrived, it is this incredible space with these beautiful women of 50 women being there in that space, with round tables and adult chairs and a podium, and it was just an incredible experience. So Shannon, thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak at MOPS and to speak to the women of MOPS. They are incredible leaders in our community, and I just loved being there. I loved being in their space. So tonight, we are going to talk about lots of different things. You know, each week you come here and join, whether you have a question, a concern, or you're just looking for a place to relax for the evening on Tuesday night, knowing that you have a tribe of incredible people. But how this works, for those of you who don't know, is you have an opportunity to ask a question. So feel free to type a question in the comment section, or you are welcome to send it to me through a direct message. You can send it directly in Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, any platform of social media, and I will take your question. No question is too big or too small, so please don't hesitate to ask them. Hey, Sherry, how are you? I'm excited to see you, Sherry, on Friday. Sherry and I are meeting. Sherry comes from New York all the way to Pittsburgh a couple times a year. And when she does, I am beyond blessed to be able to share space. And this time, we are breaking bread together. And I feel very fortunate to be able to do that with her. So, Sherry, I'm looking forward to seeing you on Friday. Look at everybody joining in. You know, oftentimes, I have asked you to share this out. Let your friends and family know. And I ask you without hesitation, right? I ask you really not thinking about, you know, how it impacts or what your hesitations may be. Maybe that's a better way to say it. I really didn't see it from that perspective. Although I will tell you, I was talking with someone and I said, you know, I get a little confused. Sometimes people will share it out and literally I'll get 9 shares. That's the most, you know, that's a lot for me. And then other times nobody will share it out. I thought, what's going on? Like, what's that about? And someone shared with me that they would love to find a platform, a forum where I could speak, and it was anonymous. Right now it's not anonymous. Some people really still feel that stigma, even in the comfort of their own home, that they are listening to Ask the Therapist Live and they don't feel comfortable sharing it out. They don't want their family or their friends to know that they're listening to a therapist. And so I totally get it. The stigma is still there. So I am looking for perhaps a platform where it could be anonymous. Many people have said to me, if it was anonymous and my name wasn't shown on the side, I would be more inclined to ask questions. I would be more inclined to comment. But with it not being anonymous, it makes it difficult. So I love Facebook Live and I'm not going anywhere. If anything, I would create a second platform. But what I'm asking you is, do you know a platform that I could speak on where you would be anonymous? or where you would be able to ask questions without anybody knowing that it was you, that you might feel more comfortable. If you're aware of any platforms, let me know. I have no idea. I know YouTube offers live streaming as well. We tried that, a couple months ago, right? We tried to live stream both on YouTube and Facebook, and it really just didn't work out so well. The other option is potentially a radio show. Sometimes a radio show, people are more inclined to call in because although you hear a voice, you don't know who the caller is. Perhaps a radio show for Ask the Therapist may be a more appropriate platform. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Last week when we were here, I was able to create a poll. Hey, Commissioner, it is great to see you. Thank you so much for joining tonight. I was able to create a poll, and I don't see where I can do that this week. It's always something, right? Facebook's always changing something. I would love to give a shout out to the Commissioner as well. He interviewed me this past week as well, and him and I sat down and talked about iRise leadership, what iRise is for our community, and how you as a community can give back and what to look for in terms of signs and symptoms of someone who may be depressed. It was a great interview with Commissioner Boozle. I loved that time with him. If you didn't see it or you weren't there for the live, let me know. I did share it on my Facebook page, so it is there in the video section. The other thing I'm working on, I wanted to share with you that you may be interested in, is I am working on downloading all of the live sessions. So I will be downloading all of the Facebook live sessions and creating a transcript. With a transcript, you have the opportunity then to download a transcript and be able to read through all the questions and all the answers of the shows. Pretty impactful, the ability to then download and see so that you don't have to go through the video to catch it. Hey, Shandi, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining this week again. It is great to see you. So we will be working on that, downloading transcripts and creating transcripts for each Ask the Therapist live show, where you'll have an opportunity to print those out and have them for reference. Many people have shared that they love the wisdom that comes with the show. They love being able to share, and they want to be able to revisit the information, but it can be cumbersome on a live video or perhaps not the time. With a transcript of our show, you will be able to just open up and reference it, right? Thank you so much, Commissioner Boozle. I really appreciate it. We love the work that you're doing in our community too. So thank you. Thank you. Hey, Ivan, it's great to see you. It's great for you to pop in tonight. So as always, Tuesday nights, Ask the Therapist Live, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where you have an opportunity to ask a question. So share with me, how have you been? How was your last week? What were some of your wins? What was a struggle? Or what questions do you have for me tonight? So I'll start out with the first question, and if you have a question, please go ahead and indicate on the side, and we will definitely discuss your question. All right, so one of the questions that I received this week was about marriage. How about that? Love and marriage, love and marriage. All right, so I just looked. Okay, somebody else is inviting me to speak at their organization. How exciting is that? God has been amazing. He has been blessing me with the opportunity to speak multiple places. I laid it out and said, this is what I want to pursue professionally, and have been invited multiple places. I am just so excited about this new direction my career is taking with just spreading the word of suicide prevention and awareness. I just can't contain myself. So the question tonight is, on love and marriage, you got to hear my wonderful singing, which is not so much. Usually I only do it in the shower, so you're pretty lucky, is, hey, my wife and I continue to have conflict around one issue. We can't seem to resolve it. Each time we begin to talk, we become upset with one another and nothing gets resolved. Do you have any suggestions for us? So this is a great question. How often in our relationships, whether it's within a friendship or a husband and wife or with your partner, how often do we engage in conflict and it isn't resolved? You want to have that discussion, and perhaps that first discussion is really heated. And of course, it's difficult to listen to one another when you are positioned rather than open in a place to hear. And you walk away feeling less than good about the conversation. Whenever we are in conflict, the first step you take is that ability to breathe again. The last thing you want to do is attempt to resolve any type of conflict whenever you are that upset. It is healthy and it is okay to take a time out, to breathe, to be able to work through your own thoughts before you have that discussion. Now, it's really important when I say that both parties are on the same page. The last thing you want to do is walk out on your partner when you're having a discussion without them being aware of the rules. The rules being that if it becomes too heated, we need a timeout, and one of us will call it, and respect one another. If you're not aware of the rules, the other person may feel angry, enraged, and may then either chase you or completely shut down and not give that space. So if a timeout is needed, I want you to take that timeout. When you step apart, being able to take a few deep breaths, gain some clarity, lower the level of adrenaline so that you are able to think clearly. When our emotions are running high and we're angry, even if we have our own baggage, that makes it even harder to come to a resolution, right? So once you've had that time apart and you're able to think clearly, now it is your turn to listen. Listen to one another intently instead of remaining in your position, because how often do we do it? When we're in conflict, we want to remember what we want to say, and we're standing on the edge or sitting on the edge of our seats, right? Sitting on the edge of our seats, wanting to talk, and all we're thinking about is what we are going to say next, rather than listening to your partner, rather than listening to your spouse. When that occurs, we don't hear clearly. We become defensive, angry, anxious, and then the argument ensues again. So the purpose of taking a timeout is that ability to come back and talk more peacefully. With that being said, you're listening intently while still breathing. Many times people do not breathe when they're in conflict, believe it or not. Observe yourself the next time that you have to approach someone or you're in conflict. Notice your breathing patterns. Either you're not breathing or you're breathing rapidly. When that occurs, there's less oxygen to the brain. We become more anxious, the adrenaline rushes, and we begin to shut down, lose memory, and want to be impulsive and speak. So breathing is really important, surprisingly, right? So surprisingly, we don't breathe. I think that's more surprising than the need to breathe. Anyways, so now that you're together and you're listening intently, you're going to validate the other person. So your job as the listener is to validate that person by listening, nodding, open body language, as well as giving them that feeling that you are present in the conversation, right? You're not thinking about what you're going to say, you're listening. After they speak, you have an opportunity to respond. Now, don't get me wrong, it takes two people to have a healthy conflict. If one person is healthy and the other one isn't, it's really, really difficult. And I see that in my practice all the time, where one is healthy in arguing and the other not so much. So you do need both parties, and that can be hard. But right now we're just talking about the ability to resolve. So we're listening with intention, we're validating that person, we're listening, and then we're sharing ours. And then we come to a place of compromise. So when you're stuck on something, if that's ineffective, just that sit-down conversation, my next suggestion is to create a document online that is shared. This may sound odd. I have couples do this. They create a Google document where they're able to share their thoughts on a Google Doc that they can then exchange information back and forth without being in the same room. Now, this isn't a long-term fix. This is a way to ease into resolution and being able to manage your conflict in a healthy way. So you create a Google document where you're exchanging information and ideas until the point of resolution. It makes it easier to be heard. I've seen couples do this very successfully with budgeting as well. Finances are a hot button in relationships, aren't they? How many of us love to talk about finances? How often do finances create stressors? Rarely do two people see eye to eye on finances unless they've really worked on it. So a Google Doc, a spreadsheet, sharing your budget with one another, working through that, I've seen that be very successful too. Once you've completed that, coming back together and being able to discuss it more rationally is more probable. Third, so if you're unable to have that conversation at the kitchen table, if it's not effective through using a living document like Google Docs or the spreadsheet, then perhaps you need that moderator, right? Or that mediator, a therapist to come in and help you work through that issue. You know, little issues here and there, you want to evaluate, is it really a big deal? What am I actually arguing about? But if it's something major that there truly is a struggle that you can't resolve, you may need to seek that professional support with a marriage coach or a therapist. So that's my suggestion in how to manage conflict. If you wanted to get in even deeper, I've got an incredible book on conflict that I have all couples work through, and it gives you a pattern of behavior, a system of communication to resolve conflict. If you follow this self-help book, you will have very successful arguments, very successful conflicts, because without conflict, there is nothing. If you have a relationship where you completely avoid and you don't argue at all, there's a problem. I want you to argue, I want you to dig deep, and I want you to work together with each other. If there isn't that conflict, the level of intimacy is rather low in your relationship. And you can challenge me on that. Some people may disagree, and I'm okay with that. But what I've learned is conflict challenges us to the core, and it teaches us how to love one another right where we're at when we work really hard at it. Hey, Jean, it's great to see you. Hey, Lisa, I was just talking about you today. I shared in my MOPS group. I spoke there, Lisa, and I shared our story of iRise and how you and I met. So I am absolutely crazy in love with Lisa. She's an incredible woman. If you don't know Lisa MacFinn, check out her book, The Unknown. You can buy it on Amazon, or you can contact her directly to get her book. Lisa's book, The Unknown, is a compilation of thoughts, of stories, of experiences that she had as she was experiencing an injury, a head injury, a concussion, moments of depression and sadness to suicidal thoughts. Very powerful, powerful book. So glad to have you join us today, Lisa. Thank you so much. So other questions. Conflict can be tough, right? Conflict can be really tough. I struggle with it. I'm an avoider. What are you? Are you an avoider, or do you tend to do well with conflict? I hate conflict. To me, conflict tends to make me fear, abandonment. It makes me fear rejection by the other person. What I've learned, though, is, like I said, through conflict, even in friendships, is really healthy, especially when you trust the person. It's difficult to have a healthy conversation with someone that you don't trust when there's conflict. But with those you do trust, it's pretty powerful, right? It's pretty powerful. So what are your questions tonight? Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Ask the Therapist Live, where you are the rock star, where you have an opportunity to ask a professional therapist any question, from love, relationships, to sex, religion, perhaps, or mental health, parenting, career, whatever it may be. What are your questions tonight? So I have to share with you, while you're thinking of your questions, you guys are quiet tonight. Come on. Got any questions? I have to share with you that I am creating a corporate logo. How about that? I created I worked with C-Suite Network with Mitchell to create the Revolution Leader logo for the podcast. Have you listened to the podcast? How many of you have listened to the podcast? This is an incredible resource for you to be able to have support during the week when we are not chatting. The podcast offers you, again, inspiration, hope, motivation, whether it's from business to leadership to everyday living, each podcast is packed with wonderful information. Every guest I interview is hand-selected as a person who I truly believe is a revolutionary leader, someone who's radical for change and wanting to give back, as well as vulnerable to share their darkest moments. You must check out Revolutionary Leader, Conversations of Influence and Change. Where can you find that? Let me give you the link. So you can find it on my website. You could also find it at C-Suite Radio Network, who hosts my podcast as well. But here is my website that I will give you. You can go right to the website and click on and listen to the podcast. But you know what else is cool? Along with the podcast, you have the opportunity to grow as if you were right in my office with the notes. You can click on the notes, which is also the blog, and complete different exercises for each podcast. They correspond, where you have an opportunity to grow in your own self-development, whether it's in ways that perhaps you didn't expect, or it's ways that you're looking to get stronger. Really cool show notes. It's the blog, like I said. So head over to the website and listen to the podcast. Download the screen notes. This is a free. This is a free way for you to grow and have strong mental health, psychological health. So let's check this out. Nathaniel says, love to share a realization that I had this weekend. Sadly, yesterday I had to attend a funeral for an older gentleman who was a strong figure in our church I grew up in. I am so sorry. I am so sorry, Nathaniel, that you lost him. He was always happy, married 59 years, tons of grandchildren. Wow. Can you imagine? Married 59 years. That is incredible. How often do we hear people who are married that long and we wonder, how do you do it? What is the key to a successful marriage? What is the key to remaining married for 59 years? You know, we want to make a joke and say 59 years. Yeah, were you happy that whole time? You know, you wonder. It's just incredible. So, you know, Nathaniel wanted to share, and yes, Nathaniel, I see that it got cut off. And you said that he had tons of grandchildren and he took his own life. Ah, gosh, married 59 years, which again, like I say, how do you go to that place of being able to be married for so long? That is amazing. And then to hear that he took his own life is just tragic. And I am so sorry, Nathaniel. I'm sorry to hear that you lost someone in your church, someone that you respect, and we'll definitely be thinking about his family and in prayers. Nathaniel, it seems to me that you share that out of surprise that he took his life. You share that you have a realization. So flesh that out with me. Talk to me. What do you mean by a realization? Share with me if you found that surprising, you know, at 59. You feel like you don't hear of this type of thing, and it's sad that we don't think of the older generations doing this. You know what? You're absolutely right. You're right. You know, we look at the suicide rate and we see the statistics, and truly it's an epidemic as a whole, but we see the numbers really the highest around ages 15 to 24. And we wonder, you know, why so young? My apologies, 10 to 24, not 15, 10 to 24. But Nathaniel, what we are seeing is an increase in suicide among the older generations, you know, especially if there's some level of illness, the inability to cope, or perhaps, you know, just that end of life desire to not be here anymore. We don't know, but you're right, Nathaniel. Often we don't hear about older people, you know, 60s, 70s, 80s dying by suicide. It's not as well, I would say, publicized, but it is definitely, it's definitely an issue, you know, we are grappling with. But you're right, we don't hear it as often. Thank you for sharing, Nathaniel. I really appreciate that. And again, we will definitely be thinking about your family and those that were touched by this loss for them in our prayers too. You know, the suicide rate continues to climb. And when we talk about it being an epidemic, did you know that farmers are the #1 at this point? Farmers are really hit by suicide. Physicians and lawyers and dentists really hold those top 4 or 5 position. And, you know, and it's just tragic. Position's the wrong word, right? In terms of rate of suicide. That's who we see affected the most currently. You know, their levels of stress and lack of support, you know, it makes it more prevalent for that demographic of people. It's interesting to me, I was part of a webinar today researching a new assessment tool to be able to treat those who have suicidal thoughts. My goal is to train, but what they shared is that it's an interesting dichotomy to see other countries who are actually working on policies, procedures, legislature to be able to pass for assisted suicide so that people can make the choice. And here we are in America, in the United States, just fighting with, for me, every breath I take, fighting to eradicate suicide, and how we're on just 2 different places with it, right? What are your thoughts about assisted suicide? What are your thoughts when someone chooses to take their life due to, you know, whether it's illness or, you know, sickness, whatever it may be? You know, what are your thoughts? I find it to be very controversial. This assessment tool that I was training on really, for clinicians, is powerful. There is evidence that shows that when we use this tool, we can help those with suicidal thoughts no longer have them within 6 to 8 sessions. Now, let me tell you, as a therapist, it takes oftentimes months and months and months of work for someone to no longer have the suicidal thoughts. Our goal is always to help that person stop having suicidal thoughts. But this assessment tool instead, which I absolutely love, just resonates with me, asks us as clinicians to sit next to that person who's having suicidal thoughts. And our goal is no longer to make them go away, but to teach them how to be resilient, how to be strong, so they organically are no longer there. And what we find with this particular assessment tool and implication of stabilization, big words, right? A plan to stabilize, is a year later, the people who've gone through this form of treatment are not having those thoughts. A year later. That's incredible in my world. I'm very excited to learn about it. But just the thought of teaching other clinicians something that I have been doing for so long, where you don't have that fear of sitting next to someone with suicidal thoughts. Instead, you invite them to share them. You invite them to be safe in your space without fear that they're going to be hospitalized. There's a time and place for hospitalization, but my belief is hospitalization makes it absolutely worse. There isn't a health system, at least for us locally, that has been beneficial in suicidal ideation or treatment of those who are thinking of dying by suicide. Instead, it's created further trauma, post-trauma as a result. But working with someone who has those thoughts, not judging them, inviting them to share those thoughts, reminding them they are safe in your space, because quite frankly, someone who's coming to my office because they're having thoughts of suicide, chances are they don't want to die. They don't want to die. They are looking and seeking support. They want to escape that pain. And then once they share that, reassuring them that they are not going to be hospitalized. But what I also liked is each session they come in to speak, or each session you would come in and speak with me, we only talk about the stressor that causes you to feel suicidal. Now, that may not surprise you outside of my world, but we were trained not to talk about those things. We were trained to eliminate suicidal thoughts. Instead, this is asking us, which is what I've been doing, which is really cool, is instead to say, you feel suicidal when we talk about finances. So today we're going to spend the hour talking about finances, creating plans for you. The anxiety level just wells up in most of us when we talk about finances, but sitting in that therapeutic office, I then teach the client how to decompress from that, how to take deep breaths, and we create a stabilization plan for them to be able to implement once they leave the office, taking those steps to be less overwhelmed by finances. Pretty powerful. You know, you would think it's a no-brainer, but many clinicians are afraid. They're afraid to talk about suicide. They're afraid to work with people who have suicidal thoughts. They're fearful of liability. They're fearful of being sued. They're fearful of being taken advantage of, being lied to, manipulated, and they're fearful of losing someone, of course. But that is what clinicians must challenge themselves in, is the ability to sit in that space and not fear. Just as clinicians need to do that, so do you. What is the most common question I get is how to help someone in crisis. And that's what I spoke on today at MOPS with the women. I spoke about how do you help someone in crisis? Instead of shutting down, how do you work with them and find an effective way? So Jan says, interesting. I missed some of the conversation, but this sounds very valuable. I believe a lot of people avoid talking about suicide for fear of being sent to the hospital. Thank you for acknowledging that. Yes, absolutely. So Jan, I was talking about a webinar I attended today for an assessment tool for suicide prevention, and it's called CAMS. So the tool is called CAMS. So clinicians can be trained on this tool to be able to support people with suicidal thoughts. So we were talking about that and how important it is. And part of the CAMS is being able to reassure the client that the hospital at this point is not an option, even if you have thoughts. Now, of course, like I said earlier, whenever it becomes more critical, more serious, then of course, the safety of the client comes first. However, we can't start there. We just can't start there. As clinicians, as therapists, we must sit beside you. We must sit beside you, the client, and be okay with your suicidal thoughts and not fear them. Instead, invite you to share them. So CAMS is a powerful assessment tool that clinicians can be trained in that I think that will be very powerful, especially here in the Pittsburgh area. I think it will all over the place, but many clinicians within this area that I can vouch for personally really fear suicidal ideation. They fear clients. I get referrals all the time from clinicians who are not willing to deal with a client who is suicidal because they're fearful. They're fearful of the many reasons that I said. So Jan, it's definitely something worth checking out and definitely worth looking at. Now, there isn't peer-to-peer right now. It's only for clinicians who are trained, but it's definitely resourceful for anybody who is in therapy, right, or clinicians. But as I was saying, it's true of even us, right? Even us as people, we struggle to sit in crisis with our friends or family. We don't know what to say, whether they're going through a divorce, a loss of a person or a home, or anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts. Often we don't know what to say, so we don't say anything at all. I was working with somebody today and she said, I'm so afraid. This person's husband attempted suicide and he survived. And now he is in a hospital. And the woman said, I want to be able to support my neighbor, but I'm so afraid she'll think I'm forcing advice on her. And I don't want that. I'd rather not say anything than offend her. And I said, see, there lies the myth. When someone is in pain, regardless of what it is, you are not offending them to reach out, support them, and care for them. See, as a society, as a community, we need to stop minding our own business. We've come to a place of such disconnection where we mind our own business as our community is falling apart and crumbling due to the epidemic of depression, anxiety, suicide, high crisis stressors, you name it. And we all just close our doors, pull down our blinds, and do nothing. Not because we're ignorant or because we're rude or we don't care. It's because of fear. It's because of fear and the unknown. We don't know what to say. We don't know what to do. But what I'm stressing is it's time to no longer mind your own business. It's time to stop with the you do you, I'll do me. Instead, my challenge for you is to face that fear, dig deep, be vulnerable, be transparent, and not afraid to sit in a dark space with someone. What I promise you, as I shared with this woman today, is if you reach out to your neighbor intentionally, and what that means isn't, how can I help you? Right? A quick text, how can I help you? How many times has someone asked you, how can I help you? Or you have asked someone, what can I do to help? And they say, oh, I'm good, I'm fine. There's nothing, I'm good. It happens all the time. Instead, when you know someone is hurting, you know someone is in crisis, I want you to be very intentional. I want you to be able to say, I'd love to go to lunch. When are you available? I would love to go see a movie. When are you available? So holding that person more accountable and being in community with them shows them value, that they are loved, that they are cared for, and they feel as if they can trust you with what's going on in their life. If you take an approach that you're fearful of offending someone who's hurting, you don't know what to say, or that you'll say the wrong thing, then chances are that person will continue to struggle and you'll feel worse by withdrawing, right? Hey, Christina, how are you? It is great to see you, my friend. Great to see you. And Jan says, great, I was talking to my art therapist friend about this. I went to a mental health forum last week and they talked about ACE scoring. Yes, I love the ACE as well. The ACEs scoring is something we had discussed a little earlier last week. And we discussed taking the ACEs, looking at what your childhood trauma was and how it really puts you at a higher risk for depression, anxiety, or suicidal thoughts. Right? So that's a standardized test that you can actually take online and then discuss with me in the background. You know, we can certainly do that. We did that last week, which I thought was really kind of cool. Jan said, yes, I speak from experience. The worst thing is to ignore it and leave the person in crisis. Yeah, Jana, as you speak from experience, you know, when someone chooses not to say anything, it's more painful. You know, I published the book and, you know, Deconstructing Suicide Through Stories of Triumph. If you haven't read it yet or you haven't purchased this book, shame on you. You need to get this book. And the book can absolutely be purchased on iRise's website, and that is iriseleadership.com. Go to the website, purchase the book, and I will sign it for you and mail it to you. All proceeds go back into suicide prevention and awareness. I'm not pocketing the money. It's not for me. It's for truly educating people. But if you haven't read this book, I say shame on you for a couple reasons. One, you have an opportunity to read about 35 people who express in a very vulnerable and transparent way their deepest, darkest moments of their life, and then how they came out of that living a life of joy. It's not to say that they climbed out, live a life of joy, and everything's, you know, rainbows and unicorns. They still struggle from time to time, but they're stories of inspiration, and they teach you many valuable lessons. They teach you how to care for your family and your friends who may be experiencing anxiety or depression. If you are struggling yourself, it gives you a place of it gives you a place of understanding, a place where you know you are not alone in any of this. The book is very insightful. I shared with a woman today, she was fearful of giving it to this person because her husband attempted suicide. And she said, oh, how will she feel reading stories about other people that I attempted? And I said, my friend, she will come to a deeper level of understanding of what her husband was experiencing. She will understand where he came from and learn how to help him. She will also feel the support of a community within a book to realize she is not alone, right? So in that book, each person talks about what it was like to be alone and how powerful it was when one person reached out and helped them. When one person was willing to do something simple, like hand them a water bottle. A woman in the book shared she was contemplating suicide, having a difficult moment, and someone offered her a bottle of water. In that moment, she felt valued, important, like she was being seen and heard by someone. That day, just the mere act of giving a bottle of water saved her life. Saved her life. So you don't have to be a clinician to support your friends and family. You just have to be you and live outside of fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being alone, fear of them judging you. Just be you and be present for that person, right? It's not as difficult as people think in terms of figuring it out. It's actually easier than you think. Emotionally, it's hard, of course. Hey, Keisha, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for your kind words. I really appreciate it. I am so glad that you're here. Hey, Cornelia, it's great to see you. You were here late, but listening to your insights. We'll catch up on your hour, though. Love to hear you. Thank you so much for your kind words, Cornelia. It is great to have you here. Hey, Christina, is this a book that you can give to someone that tried to? Absolutely. You know, Christina, you're absolutely right. If someone has attempted suicide, this is a very powerful book. I have been hearing just an amazing ripple effect with this book as it's becoming more known. You know, we did some marketing and advertising with it, but I think I went about it wrong, and I think we're doing a better job of it now. And we are just really pushing the book. And we are getting feedback from people who've attempted suicide and people who've lost loved ones to suicide that truly feel like it made a difference in their life because they're hearing 35 people share their stories and they're inspiring. You know, whether you have suicidal ideation and struggle with that, you've attempted and you've come back, or perhaps you're a survivor, a family member of someone who died. It's an excellent book. And I don't say that because I compiled it. I'm a little biased, but I say that because I'm hearing it time and again from professionals to the general public that are saying that this book is saving lives. And I can't take credit for that. That was totally a God thing. And it's a God thing every single day. But it's a powerful book. So absolutely, someone who's attempted. And I have shared that even teenagers can read it. It's appropriate for teenagers. I wouldn't give it to anybody 12 and under, but I'm comfortable saying 13 and over for the book. There are some graphic scenes where people have attempted suicide and they really talk about the details of that. You know, it's a good book to have discussions around. Duquesne University is using it within the classroom to just have some discussion and understanding and some openness to create that conversation. So Jan says, a friend of mine and I saw A Star is Born last week. We talked for an hour afterwards. With tears in her eyes, she apologized for not being available to me and said, I just didn't know what to say. I know that we must continue to educate people on what to do and say. Yes, you're absolutely right. And Jan, that's exactly what I'm doing. You know, I'm loving what I'm doing in terms of professional speaking because I'm going into places and teaching people what to say, what to do. And what they're learning is, quite frankly, you've always had it within you. It's always been there. It's just a matter of tapping into that resource within you to help and support someone. That's the issue, is we are so caged in by fear, rejection, judgment, that we're not willing to live daringly, as I talk today, live daringly, live bravely, and put ourselves out there in order to care for somebody else. If it's comfortable for us, we're good, right? We'll drop off cookies, we'll drop off a meal, or in my case, I would drop off a gift card because I'm not quite the cook. I don't want to cook, so I would drop off a gift card, right? It's easy, that's simple stuff. We'll make a call to the prayer chain, but rarely does someone say, let me sit with you in your pain. And that's what we need to teach people. We need to teach people to go within, be willing to be vulnerable, be willing to look at their own stuff so they can sit with others. Because truly, once you understand how to do that, we will eradicate suicide. We will save lives every single day. So you can tell I'm clearly passionate about it. The name of the book was Deconstructing Suicide Through Stories of Triumph. Christina, this is the book I compiled, and you can find it on the iRise website. It's there to purchase. I do not recommend purchasing on Amazon, and the reason why is because the proceeds then don't go to iRise. They don't go to fund education and resources that we use. So if you go to the iRise website, Christina, you can purchase the book. You just click make the purchase, and I send it to you. I will sign it and send it to you. So Deb Gilman, hey, it's great to see you on here. Thank you for the compliment. Stanley Brown and the colleagues manualized a cognitive therapy intervention specifically for adolescent suicide attempters. Yes, cognitive behavioral therapy for suicide. Definitely a good one. Thank you for sharing that, Deb. I appreciate that. Today when I was doing the CAMS training, they talked about the effectiveness of CBT for suicide as well, that it has a strong rate of what's the right word? I lost my clinical word. CBT is also effective with suicide. We'll just go with that. But thank you for sharing that information, Deb. Thank you. There was another one, Deb, that, as clinicians would appreciate. It's called the ACIP, I believe. I'm not familiar with the ACIP, but it actually has a higher rate of longevity of no suicidal thoughts than the CAMS. Just different resources, but CAMS takes you out about a year because that's what they've been able to study. ACIP is looking at 2 years. So pretty cool stuff, right? Pretty cool stuff, very clinical. Yes, Christina, so just head on over there and I will sign the book for you. And you can order as many copies as you want for family and friends. And I will sign them and mail them to you. So other questions? Thank you so much. This has been great, great conversation. We are looking at 9:21. Not bad. My computer is dying. I thought I had it plugged in. All right, here we go. Perfect. Now we're plugged in. Now I don't have to worry. So other questions tonight. So we've talked about marriage, we've talked about depression, anxiety, we've talked about suicide prevention and awareness. As you're thinking of a question, let me share with you another service that I'm offering. If you head over to my website at christyknights.com, you will see it got a complete facelift, right? A complete facelift. It looks completely different. I'm absolutely loving the boldness of the website. I built it myself, so if there are any mistakes, just raise your hand and let me know, and I will fix it. But I love the color pattern. It truly speaks to who I am. One of the new services that I'm offering is I'm offering a no-cost assessment to organizations, to large corporations and businesses to evaluate their crisis management protocol and to evaluate their leaders. Are their leaders up to par to manage crisis? And a crisis can be anything from suicide attempt or a suicide or a shooting, whatever you would call a crisis within corporate business or an organization. It doesn't matter the size of the company. I'm offering a no-cost assessment and consultation. So what we will do is you would take an assessment and then we would sit down and talk and say, look, here are the gaps in your program, in your protocol, your policies, your procedures, and this is how we can fix it. Why is this important? Psychological health is essential to the success of a business. but yet nobody wants to talk about it and nobody wants to deal with it. So offering a service that looks at the psychological health of a business, safety and crisis management, allows us to increase productivity, profit, and employee engagement. Employee engagement is one of the #1 reasons for the expenses that go up and profit to go down in an organization. Let's think about it. What are some of the reasons that people miss work? Or where are the high-end costs, the losses in a business? The turnover rates, right? So looking at how many employees abuse FMLA, how many employees are out on short-term leave, on disability, right? Looking at the different protocol policies and procedures, we can help your organization bridge that gap. So if you head over to my website, you will see that that's a new service. That's a new service. So please don't hesitate. If you're interested in your business being assessed in terms of safety and crisis management, reach out and let me know. That initial consultation is at no cost, no risk. You're not making an investment at this point. What you're doing instead is checking in. How's your company doing, right? How are your leaders doing? If your leaders are unable to manage a crisis or be proactive in caring for the employees, then lots and lots of profit will be lost. Time will be lost with employees, morale drops. So what I'm doing is creating a resilient environment for your employees through the leaders and making sure that your policies and procedures are in place so when a crisis hits, you're prepared. Many organizations don't have this. Many organizations don't even consider it until there is a crisis. How many of your businesses have a policy around suicide? If someone dies by suicide, what do you do? How does the company help you? How do they support you? Many times they'll send you to the HR, right? Human resources, or you have EAP. But what we are finding in the research is that people do not go to HR. They do not go to their human resources. They associate it with discipline or a way that they, benefits. They don't associate it with psychological health. So coming in and creating an environment that's safe for our employees to express when they're struggling and training our leaders to manage those difficult conversations. How many days of work are missed as the result of someone going through a divorce or the loss of a mom? And how do your leaders cope and manage with that? How do they take care of their team? What are your policy and procedures? Are you as a company losing money? Or are there ways to save money by evaluating those? So that was long-winded, but I'm really, really excited about this opportunity to support businesses in this way. It's the next step I'm taking professionally. So if you know a company that is willing to work with me or would like to work with me, who is willing to get into the trenches and look at what are your safety and crisis management policies and procedures? How do you take care of the psychological health of your employees, your organizations, your C-suite level leaders? Then go ahead and call me, right? Set up a consultation. Nathaniel says, beautiful website. Just took a look. It's bold, easy to read, and quick to navigate. A+. Thank you. I am so proud of it. Yeah, I absolutely love the colors, and everything is right there for you. The blog, the podcast, professional speaking, anything you would need to know about me, plus my counseling practice is right there. So really cool stuff. Yes, Christina, I thought you had the book. Yeah, I totally thought you had the book. So you're good. Yeah, in fact, I think you bought more than one copy and gifted a few. So I didn't want to say that in case you hadn't, but I was pretty sure you did. So yeah, you're absolutely wonderful in that. No problem. No problem. Other questions, other concerns? We are nearing our hour and it goes by so fast, doesn't it? So like I said, if you haven't bought the book, shame on you. Go buy the book so that you can truly get into the trenches and help those around you understand what it means to be present for them so that you no longer fear crisis, fear, being in that space when someone's struggling. Be that friend. Let's rebuild our community, right? Stop minding your own business. Thank you, Keisha. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hey, you know what? Keisha, why don't you list the link for your book? My dear friend Keisha has published her first book. Very exciting. Congratulations. Please put your link there. Put your link there so others can purchase your book if they would like. Also, put your website because you do something very powerful. Keisha really specializes in children and bullying and does some powerful work around it. So she knows that suicide is near and dear to my heart, and to, with bullying, they go hand in hand. One of the main reasons our children are dying by suicide, sadly, when you think about 8, 9, 10-year-olds who take their own life, is a result of bullying. We see that more than we should. It's just devastating. So Keisha published just this past week an amazing book. So please put that link there. Any other questions, comments, concerns? How are you feeling tonight? Did you do your homework from last week? What did you do to take care of yourself? I actually did much better this week taking care of myself. I was willing to just relax and not work in the evenings. And again, that work-life balance is really tough for me. I absolutely love what I'm doing. And right now I am in the thick of some of my dreams just unfolding with all the work that I've been doing, that I don't want to put it down. I don't want to stop. I want to keep pursuing. And I'm absolutely in love with my network. And so everything I want to do is about serving my network. But I'm learning just to take a breath, right? Have you been able to take a breath this week? Have you been able to just take care of yourself, cook healthy lunches instead of going out, spend time with your family rather than sitting in front of the television? Can't tell you the last time I watched TV, although I will tell you I am going to start to watch some of the shows. What's one of the new shows on Netflix? 1,000 Little Things? Is that what it's called? 1,000 Little Things? Somebody shared this with me. It's about suicide as well. I need to see the movie A Star is Born. Whenever you hear those things, because I don't watch TV, I don't watch the news, I miss it. And then clients tell me, I feel kind of foolish, like I should be like on the cutting edge of all of this, right? You need to message me if something cool comes out so I know, so I can watch it. Thank you so much, Keisha. I really appreciate that. Your book is available very nice. So she does have it on Amazon, so you can click there. Please also list your website. Right now I'm just seeing the Amazon link. So list your website as well, and make sure that those resources, people can access those resources too. Keisha is building her practice, her private practice. She's an incredible therapist as well, and is going to do amazing things in our world. So she's definitely someone you want to seek out. A Million Little Things. Thank you. Thank you, Jan. I really appreciate that. I've not started to watch it. Thank you so much, Keisha. I've heard A Million Little Things is again, controversial, but we are opening up the doors to talk about suicide prevention and awareness, and I want to check it out. Thank you, Cornelia. I appreciate that. You and I talked about that too. I know, I can't remember. Oh my goodness. I may start that tonight. So any other questions, concerns, comments, anything else? It has been an incredible hour. I don't have any more questions. There was very few this week. It was a busy week being able to speak at a few different places. Excited to be able to do that. Absolutely, Keisha. You are a rock star, my girlfriend, and I'm just so proud of you. You and I have known each other for a long time, and I just cherish your work and your commitment to bullying. I think there's very few people that commit like Keisha does to bullying. So absolutely. Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate the compliments on the website. If anybody has any feedback, please let me know. And like I said, your job this week is to jump on my website, ChristyKnights.com. I need to list the book there too. It's only on iRise's website, so I'll put it on my website too. But you need to jump on the website. I want you to check out the podcasts. I think the podcasts are very inspirational and fulfilling for you. And then I want you to download those screen notes so that you can truly dive into self-development and growth and work alongside each of these podcasts to learn and grow. All right, so I think we're done for the night if there isn't anything else. As always, we read from our book. Oh, I hear that dog barking. You hear that, Paisley? My goodness, Paisley, Paisley. Ooh, this one's good. Okay. Oh, thank you, Nathaniel. I guess it's there. I didn't realize I put it on. I love creating websites. I'm telling you, like, if I wasn't a therapist, I think I would enjoy just creating websites full time. It's a lot of fun. And Wix makes it so easy. If you're a business owner, totally go with Wix. It's easy. And I know WordPress is all the rage, and I have nothing negative to say about WordPress. Of course, it was just difficult for me to navigate I don't have any technical skills, any computer skills. So for me, WordPress was confusing, but Wix, it was really easy just to whip up that website. And I've done my own websites for a long time. I had a dear friend, Ruth Bowen, build the shell of the site, teach me how to use Wix, and I've managed it on my own. So that's a great business tip, to be able to do it on your own and save that money, right? Thank you, Nathaniel. Losing my mind. All right. So listen, you're looking for the explanation, the loophole, the bright twist in the dark tale that reverses your story's course, but it won't reverse for me or for you or for anyone who's ever been wronged, which is everyone. Allow your acceptance of the universality of suffering to be a transformative experience. You do that by simply looking at what pains you squarely in the face and then moving on. You don't have to move fast or far. You can go just an inch. You can mark your progress breath by breath. Many of us will not do it unless we do it all at once. That's not the way life works. Life works as a journey. Each life lesson, each pain, we grow, we learn, and we move forward. If we choose to ignore the life lessons, to bury our head in the sand, we are stuck like a hamster on a wheel. But see, God has amazing things planned for you. And it is important that you focus on who you are, how to grow, the pain that you experience, and leveraging it to serve other people. Let me read it one more time. You're looking for the explanation, the loophole, the bright twist in the dark tale that reverses your story's course, but it won't reverse. For me or for you or for anyone who has ever been wronged, which is everyone. Allow your acceptance of the universality of suffering to be a transformative experience. You do that by simply looking at what pains you squarely in the face and then moving on. You don't have to move fast or far. You can just go an inch. You can mark your progress breath by breath. Thank you for joining me tonight on Ask the Therapist Live. Every Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where you have the opportunity to ask me, a therapist, any question that you want, or stop by for inspiration, motivation, to share in an amazing tribe of people whom let you know you are never alone. I adore each and every one of you. I adore who you are, what you bring to this space every Tuesday night, who you were in the past, regardless of transgressions. They are who you are. I love who you are today in this moment, whether you're struggling or finding joy. You I cherish. I love you in the future. I love the future you so deeply, so passionately, because I have faith that you will change the world. I know deeply, intrinsically, that you hold the keys to your future. Remember, No matter where you are on this globe, no matter how you're feeling, you are never alone. I am right here for you. Your tribe is for you. You just have to ask. Thank you for joining me this Tuesday night at Ask the Therapist Live, where you are a rock star. Until next week, how will you serve someone this week without expecting anything in return? You are so loved. Good night.